And welcome to Impact 2024, our continuing conversation where we talk about all types of topics, where we talk about current events, where we talk about race, where we talk about religion, where we talk about whatever you want to talk about. Um, and we do that by bringing up topics and allowing you to speak on those topics. Um, and encouraging you to speak on those topics. And you can do that through typing your questions and your comments into the comment section. So feel free to participate in the process, participate in the conversation by typing in your opinions and your feelings on whatever we are talking about. If it sounds crazy, you can say that. If it sounds great, you can say that, or whatever you want to say. And so we always encourage you to do so. Let's get some management stuff out of the way first. This Saturday on the 15th, I think that's the right date. Uh, Here at Amani Christian Ministries, if you're in the local area, at 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time (AM), we are having a petting zoo, or 12 noon, depending on what time you want to come around. We're having a petting zoo. So if you're in the area, feel free. Whether you're an adult, whether you're a kid, what is it? 1 to 100. Um, ages 1 through 100. Come on through and see some animals. Fellowship, come on through. So just wanted to make sure we put that out there first and foremost before anything gets started. Petting zoo, animals. Come on, bring your kids, bring yourself. Adults, we know we like animals just like little kids like them. You can pet them. I think it's a pony, so if you're a kid, you can ride that. And yeah, just come on and have a good time. All right, and let's hop right into it. Impact today is going to talk about a current event. If you don't know, here's what happened today. The president's son, his name is Hunter Biden, was convicted on federal charges for having a gun and purchasing the gun. One of the three charges was purchasing the gun illegally, in the sense of lying on his gun application, and the lie was that he was not a drug addict at the time of purchasing the gun. Very simple concept, cut and dry, cut and dry. So the federal law, is you can't be a drug addict and apply for a gun, and that's what he was convicted of doing, of being. Myriad of problems, myriad of different things, issues there, politics, blah blah blah. We are not discussing it on that level. No need to. This is not a political arena. We're going to talk about the fact of addiction. We're going to talk about the fact of criminal justice. We have a system set up where we have very lax gun laws in comparison to other countries. Um, uh, we are the only developed nation who has as many gun violent events as we do. The only developed nation. So only first world country, as they call it, that actually has mass shootings at the level that we have, and it's because of our gun culture. And so it is very very easy compared to other things to get a gun. It's an easy process. You barely need ID. It is as many people say. They're trying to make it more difficult to vote than they are to get a weapon that can harm somebody. But yet, in this particular situation, what we use in the federal law is we have a question that says, "Are you a addict?" There goes the craziness of an addict, of the question, and it's going up to some people have been challenging it, and it should be going before the Supreme Court soon. Hopefully, it's now in the circuit courts of appeals, where people were basically saying that question doesn't make any sense. I'm not giving an example of why it doesn't make any sense. A lot of people who are addicts have no clue that they're addicts, or don't admit that they're addicts. When you talk about AA and other organizations, one of the first things they do is you have to be able to admit that you have a problem. You have to be able to say, "Look, I got a problem," or "I am such and such or so and so, and I am an addict." That's the first step or the hardest step. And so if you have no idea, if you haven't admitted to yourself, or you're sitting there and you're lying to yourself, why on an application would you write "I'm an addict" if you don't think so? Um, eh, let's take it out of drugs. How many of you out here are addicted to television? How many of us out here are addicted to television? Half of us going to say no, but then when you sit back and peel the layers of how much you are on the television, you're an addict. The cell phones. Most people are going to say, nah, I'm not addicted to cell phones. Let your cell phone break and see how you act. See how you going crazy. You're probably an addict. But most of us don't realize the things that we're addicted to. And when they've gone through the list of all the things that we're addicted to in our current society, sugar, caffeine, that's a huge addiction. That is a huge addiction. Think about all the people who drink coffee every single day. That is a significant addiction. To the point, if you took it away, most people's heads would start to hurt. They wouldn't be able to function. You hear people say, "Don't talk to me until I had my coffee." That's a huge addiction. So caffeine, sugar, fried foods, serious addiction. Go back to that sugar one. My son is super addicted to sugar. I mean, if he don't have it, he get all bent out of shape. So we have all of these addictions, but people don't even know. We don't even know. Reality television, there's a lot of folk addicted to that. And so when we're sitting here and we're talking about, all right, are you going to fill out an application and that's going to be a crime where you're punishable by going to jail? Why would we even get on that road? Why are we talking about this? What's the question? How are we adjusting, or how are we treating people in criminal justice, or in the system where we're dealing with things like addiction? Should we be getting people help, or should we be trying to prosecute them? Like, at what point in time does it make any sense that somebody who's addicted to drugs, has an addiction, should go to jail for purchasing a gun? When in reality, maybe they should have the gun taken away, which, here's the irony, they didn't ask for the gun. So they convicted him of a federal crime for applying for a gun, but they never asked for the gun. According to the reports, he still owns the weapon, and they don't care about asking for it. And so what are we doing to people who have addiction? What are we doing to people who have maybe some health issues? Are we trying to criminalize them instead of trying to help and assist? Now, as a church, should we be speaking to these types of issues? Should we be trying to talk about the fact that the criminal justice system maybe isn't right for people who have addictions or who have mental health issues, who have other problems? Maybe we're trying to put too many people in jail, or trying to prosecute too many people, or trying to punish too many people for things, some of which they maybe just need help for instead. Again, this is a nonviolent crime, nonviolent situation. Why are we trying to punish people for filling out an application and not being truthful in saying that they have an addiction, when my belief is most of these folk, not most, many folk don't realize they have addiction. Or if you do have an addiction, do you really expect somebody to write down, "I am addicted to this particular drug," or "I'm addicted to this," when many of them have to live a lifestyle of where you have to continuously lie about your addiction in order to get by? You have to lie to your family and friends. You have to lie to your employers. You have to just, lie on a consistent basis. So if I'm in that mode and that's what I do constantly, why would I not lie on an application to get a firearm? Doesn't make any sense. It seems like a trap, where we're just trapping people. And as the church, I don't think that we should sit back and watch that kind of things happen, when we're the place that constantly should be bringing people in with different types of issues. Constantly should be bringing people in who want to, change their lives, improve themselves, or just have a different path. So we should be organizations that come in contact with folk like that. And many of us are folk like that, because again, like I said, many of us have addictions. So we should be speaking to the fact that the criminal justice system shouldn't be punishing people. I feel shouldn't be punishing people with addictions. We should be helping people with addictions, especially when We're talking about procedural stuff. We're talking about non-violent stuff. We're not talking about somebody committed, um, you know, took the gun and did something with it. You're just saying, you filled out the paperwork, you lied on your paperwork, or you filled out your paperwork incorrectly, or you tried to hide your addiction. Um, and so, again, let's be clear. There's a lot of people who would be like, "Well, this is politics. This is different." Don't care anything about that. We can take the names and the people and swap them out, and we talk specifically about this situation, specifically about what we should be doing with um, addicts. You know, should we treat an addict the same way as we treat other people? Do you separate? And that's a sticky one. Do you separate what somebody who's an addict does? Somebody who may have a substance abuse problem, if they commit a crime, you treat them the same way as somebody who's not an addict and they just committed it because they wanted to, or they were mad at the particular time, or whatever reason, greed, whatever reason. Should addiction be a separate, substance abuse be a separate category from everyone else, or for many others? We have crimes of passion and crimes of rage where we set aside for people. So should we set aside addiction the same way? If anybody has any thoughts, let me know, because I think it's a little bit disturbing for me, as someone who sits back and wants to have compassion for people in their situations, and have heard people talk in their different situations, and myself have been in different situations where we sit back and we want compassion, or we need to give compassion, and then we have rules where we want to prosecute people because they were addicts at the time. And so we're going to go to a comment, and this comment is: "It is my understanding that the gun was thrown away. This seems to be an attempt by some to show that no one is above the law, not even the president's son." And that's a good point from a politic, side. You can sit back and be like, "Whoa, it's the president, whatever, whatever." But I think more importantly, not more importantly, but for this conversation, it's about the addiction. And so when you even if you're going to do politics and stuff like that, I think to the people who want to make an example of things like that, at the end of the day, you have to look at the addiction. You have to look at the struggle that people have. And we can go even further. We can go into the individual situation. You're talking about a man who, when he was young, his mother and brother passed away in a car accident. And if you don't know, Joe Biden's wife and son passed away in a car accident. And early on, at some struggles and some other things that happened over the course of their life. Now, at the end of the day, they were wealthy people, and not rich, but wealthy people, and consideration to everybody else. But you're put on a path where you have some struggles early on in life, and a lot of people could go on a path to drugs and alcohol when you have struggles in the course of life. Whether you're the president's son, or you are the son of somebody who works a 9 to 5. But many people can go down the path of drugs and addiction. It doesn't even matter if you had a tough life. You got the best life in the world. Everything's rosy, and you just go down the path of addiction. So I think that, regardless of who you are, it's not about anybody being above or the law, or any kind of things where it comes to the law. I think it's more about the fact of how do we treat people who have addiction. Rich people have problems with addiction. Poor people have a problem with addiction. Brown people, white people, black people, all people have problems with addiction. Young, old, there is no demographic where it doesn't touch. And so I don't think, when people are talking about this and they start to get all ingrained in the politics of things, and like, well, we need to show that the president's son is just like everybody else. Or we need to show that rich people are like everybody else. Well, I think everybody needs to kind of be treated in a fashion of addiction is a problem. And is it reasonable to even have a law that is expecting an addict to fill out a form and say that I'm an addict? Like, is that a reasonable expectation? Yeah. Yeah. You don't see a lot of people prosecuted for not putting on their employment application that they have a criminal past. There's no prosecution. You don't see a lot of prosecution there. You just don't get the job. Or if they find out after the fact, you lose the job. You don't get a lot of criminal prosecution when you have people lying on their applications for jobs and saying that I graduated from this particular school or that particular school. And there have been some high profile cases where that has happened. Some professors who've said they've gotten doctorate degrees and things like that where it didn't happen. They didn't graduate from the schools that they said they did. They don't get prosecuted. They just lose their job. So then why all of a sudden, if you don't get prosecuted for lying for these things, and you're clear-eyed, like you're doing it because you want to do it for greed or because you just want to kind of sneak the system, why do we treat those people so well where all you do is lose your position? And the addict should be charged with criminal, and we're actually charging it. Why are we treating the addict so bad? What are we doing here? Another comment. It seems that our society wants to excuse and prosecute, but don't want to forgive or forget. The word of God encourages us to restore persons who have fallen away. Good point. And, in actuality, just to be clear, they say that in most cases, the people don't go to jail for this. If they are charged criminally with a federal crime, they don't go to jail for this. And most of the time, if they don't go to jail based on what they're doing now. So let's say in the case of what we're looking at right now with the president's son, from many of the accounts, people say, okay, he's doing well. He's not out there on drugs. He's, giving back to society. He's got some kind of art gallery thing going on where he has some art that's being shown. And so they look and they say, well, if people are doing well now, then we won't, prosecute them in the same way. They don't have to go to jail. They just get some probation, slap on the wrist, that sort of thing. But I'll say, I don't think it should be even contingent upon that. It should not be contingent whether or not you get prosecuted or what kind of punishment you get based on where you are in the journey. So if I'm at the beginning of my addiction journey, I should be treated worse than somebody who's at the end of my addiction journey or who has overcome and gone into a better place. Like, I think what we're doing here in society sometimes is illogical. Like, I don't know if we think through. And I said, many of the judges, they're not going to sit here and pile on. Now you get prosecuted and at their discretion when it comes to the sentencing, they're not going to be like, all right, now I'm going to send you to jail, because there's no real advantage to that. But I don't even think we should be sitting here in the process of the whole prosecutorial thing when it comes to, oh, you filled out this form. We let all types of people get guns. We have so many loopholes when it comes to getting guns and going to a gun show and getting guns. People who have mental issues getting guns. We have a ridiculous amount of access to getting guns. I mean, people got into an uproar when we said that if you go to a show, a gun show, that you had to have a 3-day cooling off period. They were like, oh, that's going to mess up our sales and it's access to people's guns. We had a ridiculous reaction when laws came into play, when they were trying to pass laws that says you can't just pass a gun down to another family member. You can't just have a transfer there. You still have to go through a background check and a process. Like, oh, no, we can't do all that. We're going crazy over that. We're going crazy to keep that. But we're going to allow, all right, we're going to prosecute people if they have a drug addiction. What? Not even if they got a gun and committed a crime. No. Just for having a gun. Just for lying on the application and getting a gun. So you're addicted, and you do have the money to purchase a gun, and you have the wherewithal to fill out the application legally, but yet somehow we're going to sit here and be like, you need to be prosecuted because, again, you have an addiction, which many people now we categorize as an illness, because maybe that's how folks look at it sometimes. It's an illness, it's a sickness, it's like any other thing. If you have a certain mental issues, you should not be able to own a gun. How many people will admit they have mental issues? Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, and it's the exact same thing when we're talking about addiction. To many people who have mental issues, yeah, they know they have them. They may have been diagnosed. And so if you put it on the application, they would have to lie. But many people who have mental issues have no clue. I may have a mental issue. I don't think I have one. And if I found out I have one, I would be as surprised as the next person. And so if I filled out an application to get a gun, and then they were like, you know what, you have a mental issue, I'm guilty because I don't know. So I would have lied on the application. It's ridiculous. It's how many people admit they have mental issues? I think that comment goes right to it. You can't admit what you don't know, or you can't admit on a piece of paper what you can't admit to yourself. Like that's crazy. Somehow that piece of paper for the gun is supposed to be a higher authority than your own conscience. How many of you, when registering a car, say you have insurance on the car and you don't? And that's a real one. A lot of people don't. You're going to get it after you leave or on your way out. But yeah, most people are not sitting there with insurance at the time they filled it out. Yeah, that's a great point. And so should that be a federal crime? Should we be trying to send people to jail for that? Should we be prosecuting people for that? If the president's son did it, should we decide, okay, we got to show that nobody else is, he's not better than anybody else, so we need to prosecute and try to send him to jail? Like, come on. I think that's a great comment there. I think we have to be realistic with what we're doing. And we need to protect. I don't know if protect is the right word. I think we need to show compassion when it comes to people who have addiction. We need to be trying to help more so than trying to punish. Helping and punishing are two totally different things. And I think oftentimes we get caught up in thinking that punishment is going to be helping. Look, how we treat our kids is not how we should be treating grown adults in society. Yeah, we out here you punish your kids sometimes for doing some things because it's a learning lesson in the learning process. We don't need to be trying to punish a grown adult who, is a drug addict or somebody who lied on the form. That ain't going to teach you the lesson. That's not helping. Unless you think that sending an addict to jail is because you think they're going to detox in jail, if you think that that's going to help. But I don't think that that's what most people are thinking. And I don't think they should be thinking about that because in reality, there's many drugs in jail. And so where are we doing with the help process? And, and again, as the church, as people of God, as people of conscience, where should we be at? Why are we not talking about it? Should we be talking about it? And all the things that we want to push for. And I'm going to talk to a specific group of people. All the people who want to sit here and always push for tax cuts. All the people who always want to push for benefits and tax benefits and other little benefits. And let's have less regulation. At what point in time are we going to push for other people? Push for one another. You want to push for tax cuts. You want to complain about regulation. You want to complain about, being able to start businesses and the hurdles there and all of the red tape. When are we going to start pushing at the same level or even just half the level for people who have issues, for people who are addicted, for people who have illnesses? I don't want to hear, if you're going to come out here and you're going to say, I'm all about this kind of, taxing and reform, capitalism is great and blah, 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 blah. And you're going to talk about that. I need to hear equal, if not more, response about how you're going to treat other people or what you're pushing for other people. Because if not, that it just shows that it's nothing but greed for you. Because if all you're thinking about is money, you're not thinking about people. And I think that's probably the sickness that we really need to have on the form. Are you greedy? And we could prosecute that because then nobody's going to get a gun. And half the people who are out there getting guns, ain't going to get them. Are you greedy? And if you are, you don't need to have a gun. That should be the rule. All right. Well, that's it. I appreciate the comments that came in. I really want you to think about the issue, the issue, and furthermore, than what you may hear about on TV or things like that. If you've heard it, it's a story. I don't know how big the story is, but it's a story. But it's not about politics for me. It's not about the president's, for me, the president's son. It's not about right, left, Republican, Democrat, any of that mess. It's about how do we treat addiction and how do we treat these people and how should we in society. And so I hope you consider that. I hope you consider what we do and our punishments and that last part, especially, what are you pushing for? At the end of the day, if there's a bunch of different things that you can protest or write a letter about or be all upset about or discuss, and how many of those things are just pure selfishness, and how many of those things are actually for the betterment of society? Again, if you're talking about tax cuts and tax breaks and red tape and all that, and how you want to get your business off, but you're not talking about the betterment of society, you might be extremely selfish. I'll leave that one out there. All right. I want to thank everybody who joined us tonight, all the comments that came in. I appreciate it. As always, I want to remind people that on Thursdays, Thursday Thirst, we have here on Facebook and YouTube at 7. On Sundays at 10, we have worship service. Please join us Facebook and YouTube, and you can join us in person as well if you are in the area. And on Tuesdays at 7 o'clock, we have a time of prayer where we pray together from 7 to 7:45. We don't pray the whole time. You can come in and participate at any point in time and pray with us. You'll be praying with this ministry. And of course, at 8 on Tuesdays, right here, right now, on Facebook and YouTube, we have Impact every single week. All right. I appreciate everyone, again, for coming in. Appreciate the questions and the comments. And please feel free to join us again next week. Same time, same place. Have a good one.